Hey everybody, I received some really nice feedback around the pedestal conversion mod I did for my Big Buck World. So with that, I figured I would share a video on how I did the mod, as well as talk about a solution I stumbled upon to avoid the video signal dropout that I know a lot of people have dealt with. So let's dive right in. So starting with the monitor, I found this Dell from a guy on Marketplace for 30 bucks, so I just couldn't say no. It's 30 inches. That's kind of the size I was after. So it works very well for the footprint where this sits in my arcade. First things first, I had to make sure it would work. I tried every connection under the sun, which this monitor does have. It's got S-Video, Composite, DVI, VGA, HDMI. Unfortunately, I couldn't get any of them to work, but I did get the DisplayPort to work, which actually turned out to be a reason, I believe, that the video dropout doesn't happen. So I'll get into that a little later. The next step was essentially to cut the cab in half. So I picked a spot right there above the control deck. You can see where I marked it with the red line. I kind of cut it on an angle just to make it look a little more interesting than straight across. And once I knew that that's where I wanted to cut it, I just kind of marked it. And then I took the cab apart, put the two panels together, the side panels, clamped them, and made one straight cut. Then the next step was to reassemble the cab with the remaining pieces, as you can see here. The way I avoided having to cut through the molding was basically just to peel it back. So I went down to the bottom of the cab where the feet are and actually cut it there with a razor knife, since that area is not visible anyway. And then I just kind of picked at it until I was able to peel it off. It's just like sealed at the factory, so it's actually pretty easy to just peel it back. So I peeled both back before cutting, and then obviously after cutting I would later use hot glue to reapply them, and then when I got back to my original cut point, just cut off the excess. It was pretty easy. Here is the cab with the control deck and the riser back on. So now we're pretty close to what the final result is. I did have to put in another bracket across the top because that area just needed a bit more bracing. So I used one of the existing cross panels, so that little M bracket there, I put that in to kind of give it a bit more sturdiness, and that will act as the back half of where the tabletop goes. I didn't decase the board. I know a lot of people do that. I actually just went ahead and bent the metal back so that I could reattach it to the M panel there. It actually gets plenty of air because it's the only part that's bolted, so it actually is pretty well exposed. It gets plenty of airflow, and just to be sure, I drilled a few holes there in the back right where the panel is, just to make sure that it gets plenty of air. The next step was to make the tabletop there where I can set my drink down and kind of finish off the conversion. I just took the H panel, which is that, angled panel that's on the back of all these machines, and I cut it so that it would fit. So it was a bit long. And then I just attached the marquee with a couple screws through the bottom. And this whole section is essentially removable. It's actually a very easy way to get to the controls and the boards if I need to, without needing to pull the cab out and unscrew the back cover. Next step was to mount the monitor, so there it is on the wall. As you can see with any computer monitor or even TV monitor, most of them have a black, or in this case a silver border, which didn't really match the machine that well. So I found this wood textured repair tape, and I essentially just went ahead and picked the color that matched, which is the red oak here, and put it around the border. As you can see, it matches the pedestal a lot better than that silver would have, so it gives you a much more finished look, which is pretty cool. So moving on to the actual connections. So I have the standard Geekworm LVDS 2.0 board that a lot of people are using. Rather than going with HDMI, I went HDMI to DisplayPort, and the main reason for that was because I couldn't get anything else to come up with this monitor. But as it turned out, I sort of stumbled upon a solution for the dropout issue that a lot of people are running into. With most adapter cables, the signal itself is kind of passive, right? It's essentially just passing through, and the wired connection is different on one end than it is on the other. In this case, you can't go HDMI to DisplayPort without an external power source. It's just the signal will not go through. For whatever reason, it needs to be powered. So they sell a cable like this on Amazon, I found. Kind of pricey, but for the result, it was worth every penny, because what I found was that I didn't get any dropout whatsoever. And looking down into the cab, you can see where that USB is plugged into that little Stanley brick. And that's why I have this video running on the side of the screen here. It's essentially one complete uncut recording of me playing through a 3-track game, and at no point will you notice the video signal drop out. And my theory is it's because this connection is powered. Because the signal is getting that extra boost from this USB power source, it doesn't drop out. I mean, I don't know if that's the reason, but it makes sense to me. So that's it. There's not much to the build. As you can see, it's pretty easy. Comes out really nice and pretty clean. You don't have to buy any additional parts either. All of the paneling, everything other than maybe grabbing a few new screws, everything is reused. All of the hardware on there is repurposed from the original cab. And of course, you don't need the 17-inch monitor anymore, so presumably you could go and sell that on eBay or on Marketplace or something to kind of defray some of the additional costs you had around the LVDS board and the HDMI to DisplayPort cable, that kind of thing. Anyway, thanks for watching, and good luck with it.